So this is the 2016 Leaving Cert Higher Level Paper 1, and we're looking at question number 3. Part A1, f of x, the function f of x is equal to 2 over e to the x, and g of x is equal to e to the x minus 1, and x is an element of the set of real numbers. So complete the table below, write your values correct to 2 decimal places where necessary. Okay, so for the function f of x, which is 2 over e to the power of x, we've got, these are our x values. So we're just going to substitute these values, all these x values here, I'm going to substitute them into this function in the x position. And then afterwards we're going to substitute them in there for that x as well. So all these values one by one are going to go in there, and on my calculator I'm going to go 2 divided by e to the power of 0 first of all, and so on. And I'm going to round them to 2 decimal places. So this is really just calculator work. So the first answer we get is 2. The next answer we get, correct to 2 decimal places, is 1.21. And we have 0.74. And we have 0.5. So that's putting in all of this, the natural log of 4. So it's e to the power of the natural log of 4 minus 1. Okay, so that's the function f of x done. Now we're going to substitute the same values into the function g of x in the position of the x. So the first answer we get is 0. The next answer, corrected 2 decimal places, is 0.65. Third one is 1.72. And finally we get an answer of 3. So that's A part 1 finished. Okay, so part 2, in the grid on the right, use the table to draw the graphs of f of x and g of x in the domain 0, or in the domain where x is between 0 and the natural log of 4. And we have to label each graph clearly. Okay, so we have our xy axis here, and you can see the scale's already been marked. So if this is 1, then half that, that's going to be 0.5 there. So 0.5 is 2.5 squares, so that there is going to be 1.5. Okay, so let's go back and have a look. So for the f of x function, we're going to have 0, 2, 1.21. So let's do them first. So 0, 2, going to be here. Then 0.5 up to 1.21. So 1, 5 squares in between here. So that's 1.5. So 1.21 would be, half of that would be, let's just mark, that would be 1.5, and halfway between that, somewhere like here, be 1.25. So we own 1.21 at 0.5, so that's somewhere like there. Then we had 1 and 0.74, over to 1, so again, let's just mark this scale incorrectly. We have 0.5, then this here would be 0.75, and we want 1 is at 0.74, so it's just going to be somewhere like that. And then finally, at the natural log of 4, so the natural log of 4, that's actually 1.386, and on it goes. So about 1.4 really, 1.39. So 1.39, our x value of 1.39, we're going to have a y value of 0.5. So over to 1.39, so if that's 1.5, this is 1.25. So 1.39 would be somewhere like there, and we're going up to 0.4. So it's going to be somewhere like that. 0.5, sorry, 0.5. So let's just so 1.39 would be up to 0.5. So there we go. So that's our first function, f of x. So we can draw the graph now as smoothly as possible. You can do this a bit easier than I can. This is tricky to do on this. So as smooth a line as you can. Mine's not going to be too smooth. There we go. And then you continue this on a little bit there. So that's going to be f of x. And now we're just going to do g of x. So g of x, first point 0, 0. Then at 0.5 it's 0.65. So we've got 0, 0 here. Over to 0.5 up to 0.65. Which would be somewhere about there. And at 1 we're going to 1.72. So at 1 we're going up to 1.72. There's 1.5, 1.75 would be here, so 1.72, somewhere about there. And finally at the natural log of 4, or 1.39, we're going up to 3. So 1.39, which is here, we're going to go all the way up to 3. Okay, so there's our, this one should be a bit easier to draw. There we go, and that's going to be our g of x function. So that's both functions drawn, and we've labelled each graph clearly. Part 3 says use your graphs to estimate the value of x for which f of x is equal to g of x. Okay, so f of x equal to g of x, well that's going to be here at this point. So we want the value of x at that point. So you can see, bringing this down, your value would be here. So we know that this would be about 0.75. So then our value here would be somewhere in the region of 0.7. So we're saying this value here, value of roughly 0.7. So your value, depending on your graph, may be slightly different to that, but it's something close to that anyway. Okay, and finally part B. It says solve f of x is equal to g of x using algebra. Okay, so using algebra. So f of x, if you remember, our f of x function is 2 over e to the x. So that's 2 over e to the x. And we're letting that equal to our g function. When we go back, our g function was e to the power of x minus 1. So that's e to the power of x minus 1. And we have to solve this by algebra. Okay, so we have a fraction on the left, so if we just express this expression here as a fraction over 1, now we have a fraction is equal to a fraction. And when we have that, we're allowed to cross multiply. So we can multiply the top of this by the bottom of that, which gives us 2. And then the bottom of this by the top of that, so that's going to be e to the power of x by e to the power of x minus 1. Okay, so now we're going to solve this. So we've got 2 is equal to e to the power of x by e to the power of x, well that's e to the power of x squared, and then e to the power of x by minus 1 is minus e to the power of x. Okay, so if I now, this looks like a quadratic, so if you can imagine here, if I just let y be equal to e to the power of x, if I call e to the x y, this then becomes 2 is equal to y squared minus y. And now it's a quadratic. When I bring this 2 over here, it becomes a negative. I'm left with 0, so I have y squared minus y minus 2 is equal to 0. So now I'm going to factorize the left side. So the factors of minus 2, which when added or subtracted give me negative 1. Minus y is the same as minus 1y. So that would be, I'd have y here, y here. Factors of minus 2 would be minus 2 and positive 1. Because minus 2 by positive 1 is minus 2, and minus 2 plus 1 is minus 1. So then I can split screen. So I'm saying that either when a bracket multiplied by a bracket is 0, well then either the first bracket is 0 or the second bracket, y plus 1, is 0. Well, if y minus 2 is 0, that means that y is 2. And if y plus 1 is 0, that means that y is negative 1. But I defined y, remember I introduced y, so y is really e to the x. So really what we're saying there is that e to the x is equal to 2, or e to the x is equal to negative 1. So if e to the power of x is equal to is equal to 2, well that means that the log to the base e of 2 is equal to x. So the log to the base e of 2, that can be written as the natural log of 2, same thing, is equal to x. So there's my one answer. You can also work out the natural log of 2 if you like and express it as a decimal. So you could get also x is equal to 0.693 and on it goes. So all three of those answers would suffice. And then over here what we get is that the natural log of the log to the base e of minus 1 is equal to the x. And you cannot get the log of a negative number, so that there is no answer to this, so that's undefined. So then these three here, that's undefined. So the answer is just x is equal to the natural log of 2. And that's the end of the question.